It's a real honor to introduce our next speaker, Horace Campbell, who I regard not only as a comrade, but also as a colleague. Horace is professor of political science and African studies at Syracuse University. We go way back, at least 4 or 5 decades. And so we've been through a lot, seen a lot. And so it's a real honor to be with him. And Rosemary has set up and talked about the commission, the inquiry. It's a 200-page report. There's a link on the screen, and I encourage people to look at it. The commission was sponsored by the National Conference of Black Lawyers, the International Association of Democratic Lawyers, and the National International Lawyers Guild. So without further ado, welcome, Horace.
Good evening, comrades. I really want to thank the organizers of this Stop Police Killing to invite me to participate. As August said, about a month ago, I sent the report to August and I asked him that he should do what he can to popularize and publicize this report. I want to thank my sister, Rosemary, who has been in trenches. She's laid out the main findings of the report. And I think what I will do is to give some more work of the context of what we're doing. I also want to thank Mel for his exposition about what has gone on in Minneapolis. The only thing that saddened me about what Mel said is what has happened to Chris, because I remember coming there in the 90s, and I think you remember about us working with Chris and with the present Attorney General, and when we brought UC Quine and the Caribbean struggles there. So I think we have to, as we go along, ensure that we do not forget our brothers and sisters along the way. I'm also very happy to be on this panel with Don Rojas. In fact, I have not seen Don Rojas for a while, and I know Don has not been in the best of health, and so I was very worried. So to have him tonight speaking was very, very important. I want to hail up Don, and although Don did not say it, Don works for the University of the West Indies, and one of the 12 international commissioners is Professor Beckles, who himself was not able to be at the hearing because when he was to oversee the hearing on the 6th, there was an emergency, as there always are in the Caribbean at the moment. So I must say that this is a context. Today, we rolled out the Commission of Inquiry hearings in West Africa. Today, we had a press conference in Nigeria with the president of the Bar Association in Nigeria and two commissioners, Angelique Pierce from New York, and one family spoke, Angelique Pierce from New York, and a commissioner from Jamaica, Bert Samuels, spoke, and he spoke eloquently about the importance of this commission for the Caribbean and for Caribbean peoples. Last week, Tuesday, we rolled out the commission in South Africa before South African journalists. And last week, Thursday, we rolled out with Kenya. And the work in Africa is being spearheaded by the former Chief Justice of Kenya, Dr. Willie Mutunga. And the work is to get Kenya, which is a member of the Security Council of the United Nations, to support the African Union in bringing the findings of the Commission for the Human Rights Council of the United Nations. So this is what is going on. So my participation in this discussion on Stop Killer Cops is part of the work of how to popularize and internationalize the report. And I want to thank Rosemary, because what Rosemary has shown is that if you take the time to read the report, understand the report, you will see the significance of this report at 4 levels. The first level is the importance of this report to give voice to the families of those people who have been killed. The second level is in order to force the legislative agenda in the United States of America. The third level is the internationalization of the crimes against people in the United States of America so that the entire world understand systemic racist police violence against people of African descent. And the fourth level is to engage the African Union to be at the forefront of taking this matter before the Human Rights Council of the United Nations. So this work is, as Rosemary, and I really want to stress the eloquence of what Rosemary said, because this work is a continuation of the work of William Patterson and Paul Robeson in their We Charge Genocide. And that document inspired those of us who worked on the report. And there were 12 commissioners, and I think we should give them their due by naming them. The commissioners who oversaw this report were Professor Hilary Beckles of Barbados, Professor Nikifor Bhagwat of India, Mr. Zolani Bokwani of South Africa, is the president of the Bar Association of South Africa, Muriel Fanon Mendes of France, who's the daughter of Frantz Fanon, Dr. Fournier Facio of Costa Rica, Judge Peter Herbert of the United Kingdom, Hina Jelani of Pakistan, who is president of the International Organization Against Torture, Professor Rashid Manju of South Africa, Professor Osmani Nikura of Japan, Sir Claire Roberts of Antigua and Barbuda, Bert Samuels of Jamaica, and Hannibal Uwafu of Nigeria. These were the commissioners who oversaw the Commission of Inquiry. I was one of the rapporteurs who oversaw the hearings, and the 4 rapporteurs were myself, Marjorie Kahn, Rhea Julian, and Professor Priscilla Oten. So this work that was done by the commissioners, the findings of the commission report are what Rosemary spoke about, and we call on you to help to internationalize. Now, how did this commission come about? The families of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Michael Brown, Philando Castile joined with 600 human rights groups and petitioned the United Nations Human Rights Council to appoint a UN Commission of Inquiry to investigate systemic racist police violence and attendant human rights violations against people of African descent in the United States. After succumbing to enormous pressure by the United States and its allies, the Human Rights Council instead directed the Office of the High Commissioner to prepare a report on systemic violence and violations of international human rights by police against Africans and people of African descent throughout the United States. Now, this deferral of the Human Rights Council came from the pressure of the United States of America to the United Nations to say, you should not investigate the United States, you should make it generic. But the families pressured, and so under the pressure of the families, the National Conference of Black Lawyers, International Association of Democratic Lawyers, and the National Lawyers Guild convened this commission of inquiry. And so the findings of the commission inquiry, after sitting for nearly 3 weeks, the finding on the recommendations of the inquiry are most noteworthy. That the first is what Rosemary said already about crimes against humanity committed in the United States of America. I want to just mention 2 of the findings that we want to stress. First, that the Human Rights Council of the United Nations set up an independent commission of inquiry to determine whether the level of police violence against people of African descent in the United States constitute a gross violation of human rights and whether crimes under international law have been and continue to be committed. In other words, that's the first thing we want. Second, to appoint an independent expert on systemic racist violence in the United States of America. So this the report is 280 pages long. I'm only drawing to your attention two of the most important recommendations to the Human Rights Council. In the discussion, I can answer questions about how this work will go forward. We anticipate that before the Human Rights Council meets in Geneva in June, we will roll out this commission in the United Kingdom and in Geneva. And in New York, before the General Assembly, we will roll this out. As Rosemary said, there's going to be an international tribunal in October. Similarly, the African Bar Association will have a meeting in October. So the report is quite extensive in terms of its drawing from the crimes against the African people in the United States of America. The other point, which is noteworthy, is that the commission calls for the demilitarization of law enforcement throughout the United States. And because if you look at section 3 of the report, you will see how the historic violence against African Americans is embedded in systemic racism in the United States of America. And we draw attention to the 1033 program of the National Defense Authorization Act, where the military transfer weapons to the police departments in the United States of America. The other part which I want to bring to the attention of Don Rojas is the question of reparative justice. On the part of the legislative agenda, the report is calling for the United States government and its Congress to pass the George Floyd Policing Act. Also, that they should embrace the Caribbean Reparations Commission proposal about the people of African descent and why the question of racism constitutes a crime against humanity. I want to say specifically, the commissioners urge the United States to consider seriously applying analogous elements contained in the Caribbean Community 10-point action plan on reparations, which includes a formal apology, health initiatives, educational opportunities, an African knowledge program, psychological rehabilitation, technological transfer, and financial support. So the end of this is not something I can go into great detail. I can only share with you and invite you to read the report, digest the elements of this that brings out the point of how the United States violates international law. The United States of America goes before the international community to talk about human rights. But if you look at the 12 main conventions on human rights, the United States has signed only 3, signed and ratified 3. It has signed and not ratified 3 others. And conventions on torture, on immigrants, on children, they have not signed these conventions. So when it comes to our brothers and sisters in the Caribbean, in Cuba, in Venezuela, this is actually a vehicle to ensure that we bring attention to the crimes against humanity that's been committed against Africans in the United States of America. I thank you for this opportunity.